Today, we are talking about glutathione, the antioxidant that could heal your eczema. And this is an important one to think about because actually, there have been some items in the news that cover glutathione. And we'll talk about that in today's live. And then the other thing is that you might think, okay, glutathione, the antioxidant that could heal your eczema. So let me just start taking glutathione. But we are going to debunk that today too, because it's not just about popping some glutathione in your mouth. That could actually cause more problems. So we're going to talk about that today. And I'm joined by Tori, our clean body practitioner and eczema expert. And we together make up the clean body team. So thank you, Tori, for joining me today. And
Yes.
let's get into this topic of glutathione. So we are going to talk about what is glutathione. Maybe you don't know what that is. What is glutathione's impact on eczema? What depletes glutathione? And that's actually the number one question we want to answer. Because rather than just thinking of how do we supplement glutathione, we need to think what is depleting my glutathione? How do you increase glutathione naturally? And then what are some supplements that you can take? And can we test for glutathione? So we'll be talking about all of this today. So let's start with glutathione. This is your master antioxidant, and this is super important for everyone on the planet, not just people with eczema, but for people with eczema, it can be really important because we can see that glutathione can be depleted in an eczema situation. So, what does glutathione do? It controls inflammation, it supports detox, it protects your skin cells, it supports the mucosal barrier. And so glutathione is super, super important. And this is something that we are going to dive into. And Tori, what would you say about glutathione just as a whole for every person on this planet?
Yeah, it's literally the master antioxidant. So when we say that, it's like the most important antioxidant in your body. And it's not, you don't achieve it just through food and what you eat. It's actually made in your body. So when it gets depleted, that can be a really big deal, not just for eczema, like you said, but for many conditions and many struggles that people have with their health. Can be cut because of that depletion. So we have to be really, cognizant of that in our exposures. And we'll talk about that, of course, like what those are.
And what does antioxidant mean? Well, I want you to think about an apple, for example. If you cut open an apple and you leave it on the counter and you leave it there for a couple hours, you will start to see that it actually starts to brown. And this is actually oxidative stress that's happening on the apple. If you leave it there, that is actually going to degrade the apple over time, and then that apple will just die, right? It will go into the earth, and that is oxidative stress. And so antioxidants will actually protect that degradation of cells, etc. And so it's really important that we have a lot of this. Every living thing makes glutathione. So plants make glutathione, animals make glutathione, we make glutathione, and it protects our cells. It protects us from aging and from basically degrading and dying. And so this is what is so important about glutathione just in general. Okay, so not just for eczema, but for every living person. And glutathione is actually, something that a lot of people like to take for anti-aging, for keeping that skin looking nice and young and glowing. And it is because you're protecting those cells from aging. And so that's glutathione in a nutshell. So let's talk glutathione and eczema now. If you don't have enough glutathione, you're going to have more inflammation. You're going to have slower healing. You're going to build up those toxins, and that immune system is going to be weakened. And that is because one of the reasons is that protective, nature of that antioxidant glutathione. And then there's also the ability of glutathione to help you detoxify really well. And glutathione is a part of your detox pathway, and it's used in the phase 1 and phase 2 detox pathways in your liver to help metabolize those toxins out of your body. Now, your liver is a super important organ. So, glutathione is such an integral part of it that when you don't have enough of it, you're going to actually have slower healing. Your immune system will be weakened because your body is depending on this antioxidant. And it does deplete as we get older, when we're sick, if we have a chronic illness, even if we just have like the flu or COVID, glutathione actually depletes. So, it's actually something I like people to consider taking or thinking about if they actually just got sick. If you just had an acute illness, you could actually take glutathione too. And so we like to think about glutathione when we think about eczema. Now, what depletes glutathione? So, when we think about glutathione and eczema, what we might think is, well, why does this person potentially have lower glutathione than others? And we do see that people with eczema might actually have lower levels of glutathione. Now, the question is, why is that the case? Is it just that they just have lower levels? Or is something going on? And the answer to that is usually there is something going
Mhm.
on. And that something is actually not only the cause of the depletion of the glutathione, but it also can be the cause of the eczema. So if we hunt for what's depleting glutathione, we may actually find the root cause of eczema. So I wouldn't necessarily say like a depletion in glutathione is the root cause of eczema, but there's something that's causing that depletion, and that thing is might be the root cause of eczema. So, Tori, what are the items that we need to think about that could deplete glutathione?
Yeah, and just also to add to what you said, it's sort of a vicious cycle, right? Because that root cause, the lower that glutathione goes, the more skin issues you have, right? So it kind of perpetuates the cycle. So chronic stress, and that stress can be perceived stress, but it can also be stress of like physical stress. It can be emotional stress. It can be just living in that fight or flight state all the time, just being in that high cortisol state. Toxins can be just modern life. It doesn't have to be like a acute exposure to something. It certainly can, but just being around our modern world and dealing with exposure, some that we can control, lots of plastics, lots of endocrine disruptors and things like that. Poor diet, and so just not paying attention to what you're eating a lot of processed foods, lots of sugars, toxins in our food, like food dyes, things like that. And then chronic illness and inflammation, which if you have eczema, you definitely fit into that category of having a chronic condition that causes a lot of inflammation in the body. But you could see how that could apply to a lot of other conditions as well, where those could deplete glutathione as well. And then medications, there are a decent amount of medications that deplete glutathione, some prescription things like antibiotics, but there are over the counter medications like Tylenol, for example, acetaminophen is one that actually does deplete glutathione. So if you are a person that pops Tylenol every time you feel an ache or a pain or a headache, you need to think twice about that, because long term, that depletion of glutathione is actually going to increase your inflammation and kind of set you up for more issues down the line. So just because something's over the counter doesn't necessarily mean it's the right answer all the time. There's a time and a place for things, but be careful, just knowing that there are side effects to some medications out there, of course.
And Tylenol is what's been in the news lately, and
Mhm.
and we're hearing that does Tylenol cause autism? And what we can say about Tylenol is we know that it depletes glutathione.
Mhm.
And when there's a depletion in glutathione, there could be a higher chance of autism. And, so there could be a correlation there. And, but, does Tylenol itself by itself cause autism? I would say that it's hard to say that for
Mhm.
sure. But what we can say is that Tylenol depletes glutathione. That we know for sure. And a mother or a pregnant mother taking Tylenol may deplete her glutathione, and could that cause, something to happen within the baby that's growing in her body? That is a possibility, and that's something we need to do deeper studies on, and really understand that a little bit more. So, is Tylenol the cause of autism? I would say, could it be a factor, a player in that development? Possibly, and along with so many other things, like
Right.
Tylenol is just one of those
Yeah.
medications that depletes glutathione, among others. And are there other things that deplete glutathione? And with eczema, for example, I can name some others like mold.
Mhm.
If someone has a chronic infection like mold or parasites, this will deplete your glutathione. If you're eating a lot of processed foods, this will deplete your glutathione, because you are also getting some of that glutathione through your food. And if you're eating just processed foods, not only are you not getting glutathione through your food, you're also putting burden on your body by eating those processed foods. Your body is now going to have a higher amount of glutathione to process those toxins that are in that food. As I said, we use glutathione in our detox pathways, and so that depletes your glutathione. Okay, so we want to think about this. If we see someone with eczema, we might want to test their glutathione, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And if that glutathione is low, then we might ask, why is that low? And the first answer is not to just give a glutathione supplement. It's to ask, why is the glutathione being depleted? And this is where the answers are. And that is truly root cause healing. Okay. And someone is asking, is this also related to children? Yes, absolutely. 100%. We need to be thinking about this in our children. Our
Yeah.
children should have the highest levels of glutathione. They are vibrant. They are, their cells should be bouncing off the walls with health. And unfortunately, first of all, our world today causes us to deplete those glutathione levels in our children. Maybe while we were pregnant, we did things to deplete those glutathione levels so that our growing baby didn't have as much glutathione as needed. So, we need to be thinking about all of this. So, yes, this has to do with children. This is not just adults. This is every single human being, every
Yeah.
single living thing for that matter, because also we see in plants, if plants are exposed to pesticides, if they are, sprayed with all these pesticides, we actually see that their glutathione levels deplete too. So plants will be depleting glutathione with stress. We get depleting glutathione with stress. So this is something we really need to think about. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now, how do we increase glutathione naturally? And there are so many things to do here because really, if we just live a lifestyle as if we were out there being hunters and gatherers and we are out there in the sun and out there eating real food, we are actually gathering so much glutathione in our food and we are, doing things to our body to actually increase the glutathione. So, Tori, tell us the foods that we can eat that will increase our glutathione naturally.
Yeah, so there's a couple of foods that are food categories, I should say, that are really helpful to get your body just make more in the liver. So a lot of liver supportive foods. So we think sulfur rich foods, which would be things like cruciferous veggies, garlic, onion. Cruciferous veggies would be like your broccoli, your cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, those green, like nice, hefty greens, kale. Those are bok choy. Those are all great for getting that sulfur. And then we like vitamin C rich foods, which we know vitamin C is also an antioxidant. So that contributes to increasing the glutathione as well. So with eczema, I always like to say this with vitamin C rich foods, some people do have some sensitivities to citrus or possibly nightshades. So pay attention there if you can't have those things, temporarily. But vitamin C rich foods could include citrus. It could include things like bell peppers, which are nightshades. But if you are not sensitive, those are great to add. Otherwise, you could look at berries or mango. Even cauliflower has a lot of vitamin C. And then selenium rich foods, which the easiest way, in my opinion, to get selenium is a couple Brazil nuts a day. You don't need to overdo it. If you have a nut allergy, you could look at sunflower seeds would be a great, option. But there's selenium and other things too, as well as like meat and poultry, things like that. So if you aren't able to have nuts or seeds, there's other ways to get it. So those are the foods that we look at. There's other ways, of course, to exercising is really important for glutathione, but I would say a big thing to know about exercise would be not to overdo it. So exercise in and of itself is great, but sometimes people think they have to really like beat themselves up in order to get a workout. And that's actually going to do the opposite. That's going to be hard on your system and break it down and make that depletion a little bit more intense. So it's a healthy amount of exercise, moderate, not where you feel so worn down or like you can't recover, you're so sore all the time. Those are signs that you might be overdoing it, but just regular, good quality exercise. And then a couple other things that we have too is, just reducing your toxin load. I think that's one we could probably, Dr. Fong and I could talk about for hours and hours on how to make sure that your toxin load is less. And if you don't know how to do that, you definitely need to check out the Instagram page that Dr. Fong has and just attend more of our lives because we talk about this a lot, which is just avoiding those endocrine disruptors and paying attention to the cleanliness of your products. And we like places like Environmental Working Group to get recommendations on which products are good quality and don't have as many chemicals and things like that. And then buying organic food when you can, paying attention to GMO foods and pesticides and glyphosate and all of those things. And then lastly would just be stress and sleep, which I think everyone across the board could probably improve on. And it's not that we, are suggesting that you can control every episode of stress in your life, but you certainly can control the way that you respond to stress. And I think that's the key is if you can't control the circumstance, you can control your reaction and how you deal with stress. And so that is hugely important. And then resting, making sure you get good quality sleep every single night as much as possible. So that's a lot. It's a mouthful, but I think these are all things that everybody can implement into their life in some way, shape, or form, and focus on increasing these things and working towards doing better in all of these areas. And that just sets yourself up for more glutathione, which means you're detoxing better, your skin is going to be stronger, your immune system is going to be stronger. So you set yourself up on a better cycle.
Yeah, and I think this is so important because I think the first thing we always think of is, okay, glutathione's great. Now let me get a supplement. Now let
Yeah.
me buy a supplement and let me supplement and get my glutathione. And I think we can get so much glutathione from our food, from our lifestyle. We can stop burdening our glutathione by
Mhm.
taking out those toxins, by getting more sleep and reducing stress. And so we have to start here because we're going to talk about in a minute the problem that happens with just taking glutathione because there could be issues and you
Mhm.
might have been a person that is taking glutathione and all of a sudden you get all these symptoms and that's not a mistake. What could be happening is that you're taking glutathione, your body's super depleted in it, and
Mhm.
now your body's like, "Woohoo, let's
Right.
detoxify. Let's do it." And your body uses that glutathione to detoxify. Glutathione helps mobilize toxins like mold toxins and heavy metals, and these will start coming out of your system. And if your drainage organs, that's your gut, your kidney, so you're not pooping, you're not peeing, you're not sweating, if those drainage organs aren't working well, then you may not be able to get those toxins out of the body. And then you're going to end up with headaches,
Mhm.
detox symptoms, more eczema, more inflammation, and you might be thinking, I'm allergic to the glutathione
Yeah.
or this is a problem, but it's because possibly because you're so depleted in glutathione that there's a problem.
Yeah.
So there are glutathione supplements, and we're going to talk about those in a second. And we like to use those with patients when they are ready for them. There are precursors to glutathione that we could
Mhm.
also use, like NAC, which is N-acetylcysteine, and glycine, and vitamin C. And these are all things that help make glutathione in your body. These can be more gentle. So sometimes I like to start here if I'm going to supplement somebody. But again, I don't really think about supplementation at the very beginning working with someone. It's usually not on my radar unless someone's already been doing work. They've already made sure their drainage organs are open, they're ready to go, they're eating healthy, everything's looking good. And then I might say, okay, what you might be missing is you might need more glutathione, or we might need to help mobilize these toxins out of your body, and let's use glutathione. So this is kind of like a third step in the let's increase glutathione. The first step is let's do this in your lifestyle and your diet. The second is maybe let's use precursors. So the NAC, the vitamin C, the glycine. And then the third is okay, now maybe let's use some glutathione.
Yeah.
And all glutathione supplements are not made equally. So there's regular glutathione, which is a reduced L-glutathione. This is the basic oral form that's found in many supplements. This is good for mild support. If digestion absorption is healthy, then you may get some of this glutathione when you supplement with it. But this does have a low absorption through digestion because the stomach breaks it down before it can enter the bloodstream effectively. So you may actually not be getting all of that glutathione. But if you're looking for something that's going to give you more mild support, this may actually be a good idea. There's S-acetylglutathione. This form is more stable, has a slightly better absorption than standard reduced glutathione. It's designed to survive digestion and then convert into active glutathione inside your cells. So this is also good for people who kind of need a more mild version of glutathione. And then finally, there's liposomal glutathione. And this is the gold standard for glutathione supplementation. This means that the glutathione is encapsulated in these tiny little fat bubbles called liposomes, and this protects it from the stomach acid and it delivers directly to the bloodstream and the cells. And studies show that the liposomal delivery significantly increases bioavailability, meaning your body can use more of it. And so, liposomal glutathione is what we like to use at Clean Body, and we actually have a product called Cellular Health that we sell at Clean Body that we like to use if we are going to do glutathione. And again, we're only doing this once someone is ready for that cleanse phase, and we still have to do the core support and the drainage support before we get to the cleansing at Clean Body. Okay. Then there's also glutathione IVs. So this is also a really good option because with the glutathione IVs, it goes straight to your bloodstream. So that can be a good option, and expensive, and you have to go frequently. So I like the liposomal if I was really going to decide, what to do. I really like the liposomal version. Okay. Tori, do you have anything to mention about taking glutathione supplements? Oh, for some reason,
I was
something
like,
happened to Tori.
it kicks me
There we
off.
go.
I don't know why, but
Okay.
I was
There's
like, I
Tori
saw you,
now.
but it kicks me off. No, I was going to say the same thing about, liposomal, I think is the best option. The glutathione push you can get in an IV can be convenient. But I would also say that kind of starting out when you get to the point where you can take glutathione, that liposomal, you can control the dosage a little bit better, kind of see how you react to it. When if you just go full force into that IV, it's kind of like a little bit of Russian roulette, right? Because you don't exactly know if you're going to have a great response to it and feel wonderful or feel a little bit of a detox reaction to it. And then that regular glutathione that you started with, I think sometimes that can upset some people's stomachs because of that low absorption. So that's something to think about too when you're watching this and you're thinking, well, maybe I could try one of the other versions. I think starting with some of those precursors, like Dr. Fong mentioned, is probably a better start in food because that just gives you all the building blocks that your body needs as opposed to kind of dumping something in. And I would just say that in clinical practice, glutathione might be one of the supplements I take the most people off of when they first come to us. Like we see a lot of people that have like read about it or they've seen like a blog or like a Instagram reel about glutathione and they jump on it because they think I need this. It's the right thinking. They probably do need it, but then it's flaring them up and they may not even know it because their skin is so flared already. And so when they come to us, they're already taking a bunch of glutathione. I'm like, the first thing we're going to do is take you off of that. And it doesn't mean we don't bring it back later, but that can calm down some of those flare ups as well.
Yes. So I've been getting a lot of questions since I've been posting about glutathione, like, what dosage should I take? How much
Mm-hmm.
should I take? Can I give this to my kid? And my first answer is going to be do not take glutathione. Do
Yeah.
not take glutathione unless you are working with a practitioner,
Yeah.
because it can cause you to flare more.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So do not take glutathione on your own. Unless you've been at this for a long time, you feel like your drainage pathways are open, everything's clean. But I also think it's really hard to determine that yourself. Like it's
Yeah.
really hard to know um, if you are ready for it. And if you've never used glutathione, you also don't know what to expect. You
Right.
don't know what detox symptoms look like. And so you might end up, and I've had someone who's like had severe eczema, heard about glutathione, gotten an IV or a push, and ended up in the ER because they ended up with so many detox symptoms. So I'm going to say again, do not take
Mm-hmm.
glutathione unless you're working with someone. And so I even hesitated to give this information here today because then it might lead you to say, oh, okay, let me go grab some liposomal glutathione. Let me start taking it. Because when we start with this, we also want to start really slow,
Mm-hmm.
really, really slow. And we want to observe what happens in your body. And if you've never taken glutathione, if you don't have experience with it, you won't know what to expect. You won't know what's good. You won't know what's bad. You won't know if you should keep going. You don't know if you should stop. You won't know all of that. So that's where I highly recommend working with someone who is very versed in using glutathione and in detoxification in general,
Yeah.
because you could possibly get detox symptoms, detox reactions, Herx reactions when you use glutathione.
Yeah.
Okay.
Especially Dr. Fong, like if as a reminder, you've already said this, but just to remind the audience that it isn't the glutathione itself that's causing a flare. It's the fact that it's creating those detox, your body to start processing all these toxins that the body has not been able to do before that point because the amount is so low in the body. So you're like pushing it through. It's like all of a sudden gears that have been like stuck are moving, and you're pushing everything through at one time. So if you have a high toxin load, or you're like living in a moldy house, glutathione will get all of that moving and you're going to feel it. And so the skin like is a definite place that we see that flare up happen often, but it can be a lot of other symptoms like you said in the ER. Like other people, people get all kinds of reactions, but with eczema the skin can definitely flare up.
Yes, and we know that it truly mobilizes toxins, because we actually do tests with people where we're testing mold toxins. They're
Mhm.
called mycotoxins. And I'll do a mycotoxin test with the same person, let's say, who made a mistake and they forgot to take their glutathione. And we will see some mycotoxins come out. And then the same person will run the test again and take glutathione, which is what we usually like to do to elicit those toxins to mobilize out, and we will see a much higher value of mycotoxins come out. So we know that the glutathione, the liposomal glutathione, is helping to mobilize those toxins. It's getting the gears turning, it's getting the liver moving, it's getting those toxins to come out, and we call that mobilizing toxins. But along with that, if you mobilize those toxins and you don't have good ways to exit that, you're not pooping daily, you're not drinking a lot of water, you're not sweating, then you may end up with a lot of detox symptoms.
Mhm.
Okay. So, again, I would say don't just supplement with glutathione on your own. Work with someone who's knowledgeable about this, and figure out also, why is your glutathione depleted, and start there. If it's
Yeah.
mold, then get out of that moldy house first.
Mhm.
You don't want to give yourself glutathione when you're necessarily in that moldy house, because then you might actually experience all the detox symptoms. Get out first, and then do some things to open up your pathways, and then finally consider taking glutathione along with other things to help detox the mold. Okay. All right. So, if you are interested in learning more about your root causes, if you have eczema and you want to learn a little bit about, is my glutathione depleted? What could the reasons be for that? Take my free eczema root cause assessment. The link is in my bio, or just DM me and I'm happy to send you the link. And if you want to have a one on one eczema consultation with me and Tori, then please consider booking one, and we will assess you and analyze what's going on, and we will understand what those root causes are, and we will see if there is something we need to do about glutathione for you. Do we need to understand that, and do we need to do some testing? And to talk a little bit about testing, actually, because I forgot to mention that, we can test for glutathione. We can do something called an oat test, which is an organic acid panel, and that will test for metabolites that can indicate whether you're low in glutathione. And we actually can test directly for glutathione in the blood as well too. So we can actually test for glutathione to see if you are depleted. As I said, with eczema, we often do see that people are depleted in glutathione. Okay. So in an eczema consultation, we will help to understand and unravel this for you. We'll see if glutathione is something we want to think about. And because it is Eczema Awareness Month in October, I'm kicking it off by giving you $50 off our consultation. It is normally $97, so it makes our consultation only $47. And you can use the code HEALIG. The link is in my bio, or DM me, and I'm happy to send that to you. And we do have a 100% money back guarantee on this consultation. If you decide to continue working with us, you can also apply that $47 towards your care with us. So it is a win-win situation. So hopefully we will see some of you there so that we can start to analyze what's going on with you. Okay. All right. I'd like to open it up to questions now. So if anybody has any questions about glutathione, please go ahead and type it into the chat box now. I'm going to go back and I'm going to see what we've got going on here for questions that were submitted during the live. Someone says, this is very informational. Does this also relate to children or does it differ? And yes, absolutely. As I mentioned earlier, this relates to children, babies, pregnant women, everyone. Okay.
Mhm.
Glutathione is important for every single person. What dosage do you recommend for liposomal glutathione? Okay, so if you were here for the part in the live where we talked about this, we do not recommend that you just supplement with glutathione after listening to all of this. We recommend that you start by working on that lifestyle and nutrition, and you think about what might be depleting my glutathione. You start there. And if you want to think about supplementing with glutathione, think about booking a consultation with us and use this code here, get $50 off. And then we can help you to unravel that, help you to understand when is it the right time for you to use glutathione, etc. Okay, because it can be, as we mentioned, very dangerous to use the glutathione just on your own. And I've had people end up in the ER. So we don't want you ending up in the ER. Okay. All right. Other questions, please go ahead and type into the chat box now, and we're happy to answer that. I'm going to take a look over here, see if we got anyone who has questions here. I don't see any there. All right. Well, if you have any questions, please type it now. Otherwise, Tori, thank you so much for
Yeah.
joining me today. And we will be posting this if you missed this and you're like, oh no, I wanted to learn all about glutathione, then check out the podcast that I'm going to release next week. It's going to be this exact live that we had. It's on Live with the Eczema Doc, available on all podcast platforms. So follow me on there and then you'll get this entire live. Okay. So if you missed it and you're just coming here now and you want to learn about glutathione and eczema, then make sure to follow my podcast Live with the Eczema Doc. And then you'll get this entire podcast. It'll be released next week. Okay. All right. And thank you again, Tori. Do you have any last things to say to our viewers when it comes to glutathione and eczema?
Nope, just want to say again, supplementation you should work with somebody. The dosage would also really be dependent on everybody is individualized, how much you need. We just don't want people going out there and taking a huge dose of glutathione thinking, I've got bad eczema, and so I need to take a bunch of it. So just proceed cautiously, work on all of those foods, your sleep, your stress, exercise, get all of those good nutrients in. And that's a great start to, get that glutathione level back up.
All right. And that's that. Thank you so much, Tori. And we will see you all in 2 weeks. We're actually going to be talking about yeast, and yeast is
Mhm.
another big one for eczema.
Yep.
So look forward to that and check this out on my